All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Cinema Wave podcast. I'm one of your hosts for today, Mark Jacobino, joined by Sean Villa.
What's going on, everybody?
And holy shit, we got an episode of Invincible this week.
Oh yeah, baby!
Episode 7 of season 3. I don't even know where to start. So much stuff goes on in this episode. We have Angstrom return with a vengeance. He brings all these alternate universe marks to literally destroy the world. And I was pretty shocked that we jumped right into this world and story altering event so quickly off the bat.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that this was a season finale hype that we were getting last week, and it's the first scene of this episode, and then the whole episode centers around it. Thankfully, actually, I think this is really cool. I thought this was going to be a longer arc, but I'm completely satisfied with where it leaves off, and we'll get into the ending later. But yeah, man, this is like wild. I feel like this grew the world more than like the entire rest of the season in this like very short time span. I feel like we got introduced to all these new characters. People died. Stay dead, please.
Yeah.
People died, and it's like effective and well done. There's character development for Mark especially, but also for Angstrom and for Oliver, and we have some payoffs from that's been set up. A lot happened. This felt like a finale, and then when it was wrapping up, I was like, why is this not a finale? And then we get that little teaser at the end, and now I'm even more stoked for next week. So this was sick, man. This was probably my favorite of the season. Maybe my favorite episode since the season 1 finale. This is some cool shit.
I was going to say this is probably one of the best, if not the best episode of the show. Yeah, I mean, there were so many points throughout this episode where I was like, it could end here. And then they would just add another thing on top of it. And then another thing. And then, like you said, the ending. I'm just like, oh my God, they really, like, they saved the budget for this episode. I know me and Vinny kind of were rough on the animation at some points throughout the season, but I can kind of tell this is where the budget went. There was a lot of really interesting shots that they don't typically do. I like the close-up shots of the different marks in front of the cities they destroyed.
Oh yeah,
I was like,
the fire in the eyes.
Yeah, the shading and everything. I was like, this is like they put a lot of effort into this, and yeah, I mean, like you said, we have some character deaths, and it's really a shame that Vinny isn't here today because Rex explode. I mean, this is Invincible. We never know, but Rexplode bites the dust. Which I could say it was pretty much curtains for him when he says to Shrink Ray, like,
yeah, I'll be
wow,
right back.
He's like, wow, my life is really good right now for the first time ever. I'm like, all right, Rex has got to die, and like, no doubt. But they did his death really well. I mean, and it's really brutal. Like the way he does go out, it's pretty interesting and like creative the way that they had his sacrifice happen.
Yeah, and they give him, he like does something cool. Like he goes out with a bang, quote unquote,
Literally.
right? Literally. But yeah, I mean, him killing a mark is like, I feel like a lot of people were shitting on Rex and like a lot of the Guardians. It's just like, they're just like weak, nothing, whatever superheroes. It's like, nah, dude, he took him down. He got him. It was pretty valiant. I was like, nice, good for him. Yeah, I'll admit, it's a shame because I didn't really care for Rex for a while. These past like 2 episodes, I was like, all right, Rex is cool. Now he's gone. Well, I'm like, all right, well, that sucks. But I think it was good. I think his whole arc was good. His death felt satisfying to me. And the scene's great. He has a great action scene.
Yeah, it's always the character deaths that are the most effective are the ones you're not ready for, but it's the right time. And I think his arc had kind of come to a conclusion. Like he has Shrink Ray. Like he said, he kind of had his life in order, and it was like, where else could his character go from there? And I think it was a smart choice to kind of have more weight in this episode, because at some points you're like, oh, is Eve gonna die? Because she's fighting a mark, and the mark breaks her leg in half and then slams her, and you're like, oh damn, is she gonna die too? And they needed to have a death in this episode. They needed to have a significant death for this to really feel impactful, because as you've seen in all these different types of movies or TV shows, you could have mass destruction on a galactic level, but if you don't care about like characters in that destruction, then it feels kind of like weightless. But having a death here, I'm like, okay, now the whole world getting destroyed feels like something has actually changed.
Yeah, something on a more personal level actually like affected us as the audience. You're right. It helps out a lot. Yeah, I'm just hoping that, this is like a permanent consequence.
It has to be. It has to be.
So, because they blew him up. So he blew up his own insides. So I'm hoping that he stays dead. how do we feel about Angstrom still not biting the bullet, though? That's sort of my concern with this, because I feel like, wow, they really topped the last Angstrom plot. He's inserted himself as like this grand villain, almost the chief villain of the show at this point, with the amount of destruction he's wreaked, right?
Yeah.
Now he's still made it out of there. He's still alive.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, there's a couple things and pieces of this episode that are mostly surrounded by Angstrom that, the episode's very entertaining and it's really well done. There's a lot of great character moments, but there are a lot of choices in the story that I'm like, that's probably not the best. Like, obviously, having Mark last season literally beat his face into the ground and him somehow still being alive here, like, I feel like the writer just wrote himself into a corner there, which is unfortunate because it is a good thing for Mark, like his character, but when we open this episode and his face is literally like into the ground, but he's still alive and can move his hand and can get help and then be revived, I'm like, okay. And then the Marks all agreeing to this plan so that he can give them worlds to destroy. I was like, really?
I think it's worlds to conquer. Like they're like so I got the impression that all of these Marks were kind of like emperors
Definitely,
already.
Yeah.
And now this is like a chance for them to kind of expand out and like, conquer more realms or whatever. So I can understand that as like base motivation. I think the problem with having like 30 different antagonists in this episode is that we don't totally get like a fleshed out motivation for all of them. But I think that the hints that they drop are interesting.
Definitely.
Like they have the whole thing about like, we're going to conquer new worlds. But then there's like that one Mark that's just like he wants to see Debbie again.
Yeah.
Because she died in his universe. I thought that was pretty compelling. Someone else was like, I miss William, I think is the line.
Yeah, there's the Omni-Man Mark who, like, he was beating up Eve and he says, I always hated you. Like, that gives him a little backstory into, like, how he became the Omni-Man of his universe. So I agree. They definitely did a good job of giving them each interesting.
That actually brings me to my next point, which is I want to shout out the voice acting in this episode. Steven Yeun murdered this episode because he's playing about 18 different characters, I think, is like what they said how many Invincibles there were. And, I mean, they all sound unique. But like Mark. And that is like such a level of talent to just like slightly alter your voice because like the guy with the mohawk sounds very unique. The one in the black and yellow sounds very unique, but like none of them have like accents. None of them sound like someone's doing a bad impression. It's just slightly different. And I think like that's kind of the whole gimmick with the multiverse is that everyone's just like, oh, like a little bit different. And I mean, he nails it. And when he's playing like our Mark, the emotional range that he's capturing is like as good as it's ever been. Outside of Steven Yeun, we have Jonathan Banks has joined the voice cast as I had to look it up. What the hell was his name? He doesn't really get too much screen time, but it's one of the new superheroes they introduced. I think it's Brit. I want to say is how they introduced him.
Was he the one that was with Cecil?
Yeah, so he's the guy with Cecil. He's like a little bulkier.
Yeah.
So if you don't know Jonathan Banks, he's best known for playing Mike in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul.
Oh, love him.
So that guy's fantastic. He joins Aaron Paul, so now the Breaking Bad cast is coming in here.
Right.
And at the end, we have Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
And he's playing who?
He's playing this Viltrumite.
Oh, the Viltrumite.
That's coming down. So we've got a whole bunch of new people joining this voice cast that, again, are just powerhouses.
I mean, Invincible has never spared any expense with voice actors.
True. Yeah. And, now Aaron Paul's back.
Yeah.
One episode later, we get some immediate follow-up with that. Great. I thought he was going to be gone forever. It feels more serialized. It feels more serious. This is kind of what I've been looking for in this show. It's a lot less episodic filler, like kind of low stakes. Like I feel like the whole world was involved in this episode. All of the plots were kind of moving forward simultaneously. Rex dies, so the comic relief is dead.
Yeah.
This is like a tonal shift that I think the show really needs. And I think there's a couple more instances in the episode where I think it's like a promising future for the show. One of those is Mark holding Angstrom in front of Oliver. He's about to presumably punch him to death. And Oliver is like, do it, kill him. And now in my head, I'm like, oh, this is going to be that stupid scene where he has to show Oliver that like killing's wrong or whatever. No, dude, he's like, yeah, I'm going to kill you. Like you left me no choice. And he's like, he's going to really like rock with Oliver, which is
Mhm.
totally different than what he was like trying to resist in those early episodes. Then at the end with this new Viltrumite coming down, I think his line is like, "I've been looking for something to hit as hard as I can."
Yeah,
Sweet, dude, nice.
yeah.
Like, all right, he's finally gonna like, not get his ass whooped. Hopefully, like he's gonna try and like kill people, and like, we just saw what they can do. So like, and they make a point to say that all these variants like aren't as strong as our Mark, and they just like destroyed half the globe.
Yeah.
So now like, if we're gonna get finally Mark that's like not trying to like pussyfoot around everything and is actually just gonna like full tilt go for it, good, dude. Like, well, like we're there. We're at that point in the show where like I want that. I feel like it's been like baiting me, and I think we're there. So that's awesome.
No, I totally agree. Like this show cannot go backwards now. Like it can't go back to street level. Like we've destroyed entire cities. Mark has gotten to the point where I think by the end like of this season he's going to leave Earth and like go find Alan and his dad, because I think on Earth he's just realized he causes too much pain. I don't know what that's going to do with Oliver, his relationship. I think that's kind of where it's going, but I do want to go back to the point you said about Mark committing to killing Angstrom at the end of this episode. And I love that the entire season is building up this we don't kill, we're good people. And he gets to the point where he reverses that. He's like, I feel bad that I didn't finish the job when I killed him back in time. And Cecil comes to him and he's like, you feel bad, but you shouldn't feel bad about being a good person. Like, I love that line. I love that interaction. I love that flip of Mark being like, I wish I killed him now at this point to save all these people. And he had been feeling bad about killing him. So I thought that was like such a good
it's a good
dynamic.
Switch. It makes sense. I love Cecil, by the way. I mean, Cecil,
best character.
He's got to be the best character. And I like that they leave them in a very interesting spot relationship wise, where Mark is still not like, well, I'm just gonna like be a guardian again, which good. Again, that's more like status quo stuff that I don't want. But he's also like, I'm realizing that this is kind of like a codependent relationship that we have, where like, you're in charge of too much and like protecting the world. We have the same goal. And I like that for their relationship. It feels like it's maturing in a natural way.
Definitely.
And it's getting a little more complicated, a little more real. So yeah, it's just good, man. There's so much good stuff in this episode.
Yeah, I am interested in your thoughts about these fringe superheroes that we hadn't seen before, that we get little glimpses of beating these Marks one-on-one. We have that robot in space that we see very like short little clips of. He beats a Mark one-on-one.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of a big deal that there's another superhero that is that strong on Earth that we haven't seen before. And I feel like there are some other instances where we saw these superheroes go one-on-one with a Mark. Obviously, they make the hints that he's not as strong as our Mark, but still, that's pretty significant that there are other superheroes at that level.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, this show's always kind of had, I think, a little problem with power scaling.
Yeah.
Where just like sometimes Mark can, beat a Viltrumite and can like go one-on-one with his dad and like not die. And then he could, get destroyed by like a big bug.
Loose to dragon.
Yeah, right. Loose to just like some idiot. Like we have a Mark in this episode that is 1v1ing a guy who I think is like a Daredevil parody, who's just kind of like diving around blindfolded, shooting at him with a gun. And he's like, the gun. So it's like, all right, well, like how weak is this guy? Because like, I feel like a gun is like a crazy weapon to be shooting Mark with, but like whatever, power scaling stuff. I don't really care. Yeah. But I agree. I think that it would be weird if they don't acknowledge this precedent they've sent, that like, actually, there are a whole bunch of really strong heroes. We just haven't seen them. And, like, the Guardians of the Globe, who are, like, the Justice League, the best of the best, like, aren't the best of the best at all. That's a little strange. Yeah. Because Immortal gets rocked again.
He just gets his head turned
off all the time. He's never won a single fight in this entire show. He just gets his ass whooped every single time.
Yeah.
Which is kind of his whole character. It's pretty funny. I don't totally hate it. But to my point, or to your point, yeah, there's, like, cooler superheroes, and we've just been introduced to a whole bunch of them. I hope they don't go away, because it does seem important. It seems like something that would come up in these conversations of like, all right, well, how do we beat the Viltrumites? It's like, well, if you get like 7 of those guys together, like they'll probably handle it. So I do want to see, again, this world, like it's expanding. It expanded a lot in this episode. Don't retract.
No.
That'll bother me. Like we opened up so many doors. We have all these new people. They all seem interesting. Jonathan Banks is voicing one of them. I want to know about that guy. Like tell me about it. So yeah, I think I think you're right. I think this could be very cool, unless they backtrack. and then that could be an issue. So hopefully not.
Yeah, it makes us feel like, some of the stuff that they set up earlier in the season around like the street level crime and all that other stuff. It's like, why even set that up if we're going to be going in this direction? And it scares me that they're going to go back to it at some point, but I don't think so. I mean, like literally the world is destroyed at this point, and like it has to move forward in a different way. Maybe a little tangent from what you were talking about, just like superhero shows and movies in general is like something that's always in the back of my mind that is kind of brought up in this episode is the fact that there are all these other superheroes that like there's all these other world ending events and they are nowhere to be seen. And then today is the day they all show up and they get involved. And it's like, part of me is like, I don't know, when like Omni-Man is like doing that shit in Chicago, why is the Air Force the only ones that show up? Like, why aren't there hundreds of these superheroes? Like, hey, there's a guy just destroying an entire city. Like, obviously this is planet scale, but just part of me is just like, I don't know. I feel like superheroes, like stories have problems with that just because they make so many superheroes and then it's like they're all in the same world, but they're not interacting and there's all these world level events. I don't know. Does that bother you? Do you think about that?
I understand it because, again, from like a narrative perspective, you're right. Like it kind of speaks to me as like, oh, well, you didn't like plan out the world building, but you had the comic the whole time. So like maybe we should have introduced some stuff. On the other half of it, this is a comic, and I was watching it with a comic book nerd friend again, and he had told me that apparently in the comic book, this issue was a whole bunch of like other characters owned by whatever the comic company, I think it's Image, that owns Invincible. So they did a crossover with like Spawn, and we see in this episode like Wolfman is there. So like these are like other. They have their own comics, and it's kind of like a crossover thing. So some of them I think we couldn't get. Like in last season when he goes to a dimension with Spider-Man and it's not Spider-Man.
Oh, right.
That was Spider-Man in the comic. So it's like some of them are just like, oh, we couldn't get the rights to them. So like we're trying to do like workarounds. So I can understand that from like a production standpoint. Don't spend $50 million to get a cameo with Spider-Man if it's going to make like, just the production a hell. Yeah. And then like we're not going to get seasons quick. So like I understand the sacrifices. So I'm willing to look past it, but I do understand what you're saying because then we get characters like the people at the prison, where it's like we've seen that prison, so it's local. Who are these people?
Right. It's like why didn't they show up for the dragon fight or anything like that?
It's like they're in Chicago. It's like these three just like almost soloed Mark. So it's like, who the hell are those guys? Like we should have gotten them a little bit earlier. Yeah. But again, whatever.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just, I don't know. I get it.
But keep them now. That's the word.
That's the most important
It's like, okay,
part.
like you didn't introduce them before. I could look past it. But if now they disappear again, I'm going to be like, well, what happened to that guy with like Thor's hammer that was running around? Like, I want to know about that guy. So, we'll see.
And the girl with the boxing gloves. Yeah,
right, the girl with the cool boxing gloves.
Cool. Yeah. So where do you think they go with the finale? Like, is Mark leaving Earth? That's my theory. I think Mark's leaving to, I don't know what's going to happen with this fight with this Viltrumite. Like, it's got to go well to a degree, right?
I would imagine that Mark kills this guy. Mm-hmm. If he doesn't kill this guy, it's going to be a big surprise to me.
Yeah.
Because it seems like when they sent Anissa last season, it was like, this is your last warning. If you don't comply, like, I'm going to send a guy to kill you. And now this is the guy to kill him, I think. Like, he shows up and he calls him, like, worm.
Mm-hmm.
Baller. Just comes down and calls him a worm. And then, he looks jacked. It looks like this is going to be, like, a hell of a fight. I'm hoping that we incorporate some of the people that we've been building up. Like, maybe those street-level guys that we were talking about. Maybe this is their city. Maybe they pop out and like Titan's trying to like swing on this guy, and maybe it's like Mark actually like has helped some people and like they're willing to fight for him, whatever. They could do something cheesy like that, or Mark could get rocked again, and then I don't think he would leave. That's where I get caught up. It's like I don't think this guy. I think it was Conquest.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Right? Yeah. So
right.
He comes down. I would imagine Mark kills this guy, and then when Mark kills this guy, it will probably be another like recovery thing for most of the episode, like they did with the season 1 finale, where he's kind of reconciling with the destruction. Because especially this is like a second wave of destruction after we just had a world-ending event. Now there's going to be another Omni-Man basically fight. So I hope it's good. This feels like narratively this should be like a really important fight. For sure. And they're saving it as a cliffhanger. This might be the first episode of the entire show that doesn't have a post-credit. It's just like, yeah, they're going to fight. Like, come back next week. It's going to be big. So narratively, this feels important. Like if this doesn't, go balls to the wall crazy, I think I'm going to be a little let down because, again, you hyped me up with the Mark, I'm going to hit something as hard as I can line. I was like, all right, this should be, like, violent as shit. Like, Mark has been pent up this whole time. Like, he just got attacked for, like, trying to, like, help out. He gets powerplexed again. It's like, this should be big. So, whatever happens after this big fight, I'm kind of like, to your prediction, does he go to space? Maybe. I don't know. I'm open-minded, though. It seems like they have some cool stuff planned. At least the opening to this next episode is going to be cool. Yeah. So I'm eager to see how this season wraps up.
Yeah, I feel like the full circle thing would be, we start this season showing Mark training and getting stronger, and then the whole season is him holding himself back from killing. Right. And now to end the season, it would make sense that all that strength that he built up, and all the strength that he was holding back, like this is finally the moment we see Mark take that next step and actually go all out and fight a Viltrumite one-on-one and hopefully kill him. And then, like you said, maybe the world, rallies around him after he saves them from a Viltrumite, or, he does this and maybe, I don't know. I'm very interested. Adam Eve, she's in a coma right now. I think he obviously feels somewhat responsible for that. I think Oliver's a really interesting, like, aspect of this show, and I don't know where he fits into this because he was, front lines in this episode.
He could die.
He could die. I really thought Debbie was in trouble this episode because Angstrom had already, almost killed her before. Right. Like, I was very scared for Debbie. But yeah, Oliver is just like this very interesting thread that, does he go with Mark? Does he stay behind? And his moral compass is also very much in a very fragile state. So
the show's posing this really like interesting moral question, I think, where Mark has tried for so long to like not kill anybody.
Yeah.
But now his whole arc this season is like, whatever I've been doing, I've been failing everyone. It's like everybody hates me. I'm causing so much destruction inadvertently. Like so many people are dead because of me. He's blaming himself. And now Oliver's introduced this season as a character that's supposed to represent like this opposite viewpoint of like, just kill them. Like that guy was going to like nuke the world. Like just kill that guy. Yeah. And Mark has to be like, no, like I'm not going to do that. And now, now he's sort of on board with that. So I think, if I was writing this, prime candidate to die would be Oliver, because now it's like, to almost like avenge his death, you take on that philosophy. And that would make sense to me on like a narrative level. But again, this show doesn't kill people. So I don't really buy it. I don't think they're going to kill Oliver, especially because he's like a kid. I don't see it. If I had to guess that someone dies, if this is going to be like a huge explosive finale and someone's going to die, I'm putting money on Oliver. But we'll see, man. I don't know. I could just look up the comic and see what happens and then tell you guys. But that would be boring. That would be boring. I'm not going to do that,
Sean.
I'm not going to do that. I know. I'm going to guess and be wrong. So,
That's all right.
I think I did call Rex dying, though. I think I joked to Vinny that it would happen, and I think it did.
Sounds familiar, yeah. It was going so well for Rex, and the show usually does not have, like, happy endings. So I was like, yeah, this is probably going to go south. And then, when he's like, I'll be right back, or my life's finally intact, I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, right.
See you later, Rex.
Okay.
Anything else from the episode? Was there any crazy kills that you were like, hell yeah, that was sweet? I know we forgot about the Alan and Omni-Man punch. We forgot to talk about that in that one episode. So was there any crazy... I'm trying to think if there was any like crazy insane kills in this episode.
I really like... I like some of the mark-on-mark action. I think it's like well choreographed where they're like kind of like flying around each other. I like that scene where the guy with the mohawk, Mark with mohawk, is on top of him. And he like punches both his ears or whatever. That's a cool shot. I'm sure there's other shit in there. I think those like silhouette shots where they're like over the flaming cities are awesome that you brought up before. In terms of action, nothing crazy. There was no like train scene level stuff here. There was no fist bump through a guy's head level stuff.
Yeah.
Again, I'm hoping we get that in this Viltrumite fight. Yeah. Maybe Mark. I could see this guy like chopping somebody in half or something. He looks big enough to do it. So we'll see. I don't know. I love my gore, so hopefully.
Yeah, I think there was definitely some pretty dark stuff this season overall. But yeah, the train is still like that's still in the back of my head. I'm like, that is so insane.
Oh, you know what I did notice though that I thought was really cool?
What?
They do a shot where they're fighting the variant Mark in the Guardians headquarters.
Yeah.
Where he's like fighting Immortal and Kate and all them.
Yeah.
There's a shot where I think he grabs Kate, and it's the exact same shot when Omni-Man kills, I think, Darkwing.
Oh, okay.
In like the, that opening fight.
Right.
It's the exact same shot. So I like that they're holding that mirror to like Mark is Omni-Man.
Wait, now I remember. Didn't he use Immortal's head to kill a Kate?
Yes, that was
he
sick,
threw
actually.
it.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. I totally forgot that.
Yeah, that was insane.
Yeah, that is
he threw it right through her. Yeah. Oh, I think the last thing that's interesting, I don't know if we really have to talk about it, but the people that brought Angstrom back to life, those 3 like scientist guys that revive him. It's
gotta be a Hellraiser reference. It's gotta
They look close to it, but it's like they revive him and they kind of give these little hints at the beginning of the episode, like these guys are smarter than they seem. They're not just like henchmen. Right. And then they're like, you're gonna work for us now. Like you promised us this and now you're gonna work for us. And now it's like, who are these guys? What's their motivation? What are they gonna do with the power of,
multiverse.
Different multiverses? And then, all the future scenarios where Mark is the emperor of the world, like the world is really in shambles. So like maybe the world doesn't recover and Mark does go down like a dark path because of this whole interaction and the fight with the Viltrumite. I don't know.
That'd be cool, man.
There's a lot of cool stuff for the finale that I unfortunately will not be here to discuss, but I'm excited to see.
Mark, we're gonna miss you so much.
I'm really excited to see what you guys come up with next week after the finale. I feel really bad for Vinny for missing the episode where his king dies. Like it's almost too perfect that he's not here for it. But yeah, that's it. That's all we got. Hope you guys have enjoyed this episode on Invincible episode 7. Insane episode. Absolutely crazy. Cannot wait for the finale. Please let us know what you thought about this episode in the comments. What were you shocked by? What are you predicting for next week? Let us know. Please subscribe, like this video, watch all of our content. We're talking about everything big that's on TV and in the movie theaters. And we appreciate you watching. So I've been Mark Jacobino.
I've been Sean Villa. Real quick, last thought.
Oh, he's gonna.
Yeah. This is just a little thing. We don't have to talk about it. I'm realizing now this is gonna be Stephen Yeun and Jeffrey Dean Morgan fighting it out in this finale. Any of my Walking Dead fans out there? This is a cool rematch.
Oh,
I'm liking this. All right, whatever. I've been Sean Villa. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Pass it back to Mark.
Just killed my outro. Just killed it.
Sorry.
For a Walking Dead reference. Come on.
It's cool, man.
Yeah,
cool.
That show has to end if it's still going. Anyway, we'll see you on the next one.
This is The Culture.